National Police Commissioner Riah Phiyega and Crime Intelligence boss Chris Ngcobo had until last Friday to respond to subpoenas issued by legal counsel for Radovan Krejcir to produce documents relating to his arrest. Krejcir and 5 co-accused are on trial at the South Gauteng High Court Palmridge Magistrates Court on Gauteng's East Rand. They're facing charges of dealing in drugs, attempted murder and kidnapping. Well, to talk about Radovan Krejcir's trial, we are joined from our Cape Town studio by Peter Gastrow. He's an expert on international organised crime. Peter, welcome. It's good to have you here on the programme.
Thank you. Good morning.
Last week, the court proceedings came to a bit of a halt when Radovan Krejcir's lawyer, Annelien van der Heever, told the court she could not proceed with her cross-examination of state witness Paul Matobela until she obtained all of the documents for which the subpoenas have actually been issued to the above-mentioned Paul O'Sullivan, Riah Phiyega, Chris Ngcobo. What are the implications of the subpoenas in this case?
Our law does provide for accused persons to make use of the subpoena mechanism to get evidence and to get witnesses. But the risk is very often that those people who are forced by subpoena to come and give evidence or to produce documents come with more than the accused actually wants them to produce. So it can backfire, but it has the force of law, and all those who've been subpoenaed have no option but to comply with the subpoena.
Let's have a look at Krejcir, the man. I mean, he's a fugitive from the Czech Republic, where he's wanted on charges including money laundering and as well as attempted murder. I mean, these are very serious charges. What does it mean for him?
These are very serious charges. Clearly a man who's grasping at every possible piece of evidence that could assist him in his defense. One never knows whether these subpoenas are seriously targeted at specific bits of evidence or whether they are what lawyers call a fishing expedition. But the man seems to be looking at every possible bits of evidence that could assist him. The charges are such that if he was to be convicted, he could expect a long sentence of imprisonment. So it's a man who's in a corner and who's using every possible means to try and create some space for himself.
Yeah. I mean, some people linked to organised crimes have actually been able to make a deal with the state in previous cases. Why is this one so different?
Well, those are cases where the prosecutors enter into a plea bargaining with the accused persons. And most serious organized crime cases here and in other parts of the world, or more specifically in other parts of the world, are really done by way of plea bargaining. And that is not because they want shortcuts or because that is a preferred option, but it's because it's so difficult to get evidence against top organized crime kingpins. They don't normally are involved in the street-level activities, so what the state very often tries to do is to get someone who works with the accused to turn, to become a state witness. And with that prospect, we very often find that an accused says, wow, my former colleague is going to testify, let's make admissions, let's agree on prison sentences. So in this case, it hasn't happened. That could either be because the state is confident that it has enough evidence to prosecute Krejcir, or it's a case where they couldn't find anyone from within the organization or a former colleague to testify against him. Plea bargainings are increasingly preferable because you do actually get more convictions in complicated, sophisticated organized crime cases.
Yeah, yeah. One of the subpoenas is a request to the National Police Commissioner, Riah Phiyega, to clarify whether she instructed officers to arrest Krejcir and one of his co-accused last year. Now, what are the implications for the police and the justice system on this one?
I don't think the implications are serious. The police commissioner will probably have to come and give evidence, and she may just say more than Krejcir expects. She may just have more information than he knows. We don't know on what basis he wants those questions. I think the law, the Criminal Procedure Act, provides for witnesses to be subpoenaed. in order to ensure that an accused has every possible avenue to obtain relevant evidence in defense. It is not something which undermines the criminal justice systems. I think it is something which gives confidence that accused persons have the right to obtain as much evidence as they want to. But as I said just now, it may well backfire.
Yeah. All right. Now, organised crime, it really is a global challenge. I mean, when we look at certain issues, how big is it in South Africa, and how aggressive is our justice system in combating it?
Organised crime and sophisticated international organised crime has expanded significantly in South Africa in the last 20, 30 years. It is something which is growing. It's something which is getting deeper into state structures, into business. It's happening here, and it's happening in the rest of the world, really. It's become more sophisticated, and I don't believe that our criminal justice system, particularly police and prosecution, are as equipped as they were to deal with this phenomenon as they were 5 years ago, for example. These are wealthy individuals who very often operate below the radar screen. They don't come with dramatic sports cars or statements or try and expose themselves. They employ the smartest lawyers and accountants and forensics. They operate internationally. And it is a phenomena which I don't think we focus on enough. They are in South Africa because of its location, because of the large criminal markets, and they're becoming a national and security threat in South Africa and globally.
Yeah, yeah. Let's take another case, for example, the Glen Aliotti case. I mean, becoming state witness, you know, what does it really mean at the end of the day? I mean, we all are fully aware about the drug dealer status, you know, when with the links to Glen Aliotti. But let's take that case into consideration. Does it always work?
That is a case where the prosecution seemed to have accepted that unless they managed to get someone who was acquainted with and who worked with Celebi to give evidence against him, they wouldn't have been able to prove their case. So they went about persuading Aliotti, who it seems would have been charged with very serious drug trafficking charges involving international drug deals. They got him to accept that he better cooperate, I beg your pardon, and give evidence. And through that evidence, they managed to get a conviction. That is a typical, classical way in dealing with complicated organized crime cases. Here you have a case where organized crime, through Aliotti, has had penetrated the most senior levels of our police agencies. And I would say this type of organized crime activity is happening all the time. It's happening in government departments, in business. That is what is necessary for them to get to power and to get protection. Aliotti was involved with Celebi in order to have protection from the police. And that is what organized crime leaders want. They want to operate with impunity, and they buy politicians, they buy government officials, they buy businessmen to achieve exactly that. And it's widespread. It's widespread. The fact that we don't have headlines of all the many crime syndicates that operate in South Africa does not mean that they are not very active. Yeah.
Just finally, let's wrap this up in terms of also, you know, as we as South Africans, and we're getting crime syndicates coming in from other countries to come and operate in South Africa. And again, we take Radovan Krejcir, referring to my first question, what he's wanted for in the Czech Republic. How safe are we here in South Africa, and why is it so easy for these guys to operate here?
We should not believe that South Africa is the only country or which has organized crime problems. It is just very popular in Africa. It's very popular for international crime syndicates, whether they are from China, from Europe, from Nigeria, from Israel, from Pakistan, from India, from Italy. They're all here. South Africa is popular because it is well situated globally between the supply of cocaine, for example, in Latin America, and the big markets in the East. It has fantastic infrastructure with harbors, airports, banking sector is fantastic, high quality of life for those who can afford it, like Palazola with their big mansions on the west coast of the Cape. And it has a very extended criminal market. People can afford to buy drugs and counterfeit goods and second-hand goods. So it has many attractions compared to other countries in Africa, and that is why they operate. And increasingly, unfortunately, the risk for them to be caught and prosecuted is dropping. Now, once the environment is no longer as risky for organized crime as it perhaps used to be, that's of course when they slip in and expand. And I believe that in South Africa we face an environment where the risk is dropping rather than where the risk is increasing and where the chances are increased that they're going to be caught. That's problematic. I think the political will to counter transnational organized crime or organized crime locally is not what it was. And the political will needs to be shored up. Without the political will to counter corruption and organized crime, it is fertile territory for organized crime to expand.
All right. Interesting conversation. Peter Gastrow, thank you very, very much for talking to us here on the program. Peter Gastrow is a legal expert in international organized crime. All right, let's take a break here. A very important topic is